Tonight, you don't go to bed. The bed stays made. Tomorrow night, the same. From now on, you have 8 hours that everyone else sleeps through. You don't have to ask anyone for them, fit them into your schedule, or give anything up to get them. They just show up. Tonight, and every night after. Sleep takes about a third of a day. Add those thirds across a lifetime, decades with your eyes closed. As long as school, college, and your first 10 years of work combined, the decision is yours. Your body hasn't heard about it yet. Those 8 hours were spoken for a long time ago. How much you can get done, you'll find out tonight. Who you are inside those hours takes longer to show. Nothing changes in the body. No mutation, no pill, no doctors with sensors. The need for sleep is what it was yesterday evening. One thing changes, and it's a decision. People stop going to bed. A father turns off the light in his daughter's room, shuts the door, and sits down at his desk. A woman opens a textbook at 1 in the morning. Her licensing exam is a month away, and her days leave no room to prepare for it. A man who has been putting off a trip to see his mother for 4 years runs a finger along the route and counts the hours. They've never met. None of this was planned together. Each decided those 8 hours were worth more than sleep. The usual promise here is that you'll get more done. 40 books a year, a second language, the body you always meant to build. What happens is simpler than that, and bigger. On the first night, the decision looks close to perfect. The night opens with a quiet the day never has. No calls, no replies, no footsteps behind the wall. The father works through months of backlog, bills, a report, paperwork, a contract he should have read in March. By 4 in the morning, the list he's carried for half a year is half as long. The night isn't empty, it just doesn't belong to anyone else. For the first time, the woman opens the textbook with nothing else waiting. The house asleep, one lamp over the desk, no one asking about dinner. The man runs the numbers. 6 hours to his mother no longer costs a weekend. He can leave at night and be at his mother's door by breakfast. The real change comes the following evening. At 6 the next day, the laptop stays closed. Everything that usually takes his evening was done before sunrise. His daughter brings out yesterday's drawing, and they sit on the floor. He doesn't have to choose anymore between his work and the person he's working for. She asks if they'll draw again tomorrow. He says they will. By that evening, it feels like it worked. Each of them starts counting forward. The father sees a school auditorium, his daughter on stage, himself in the 3rd row. Instead of hearing about it secondhand, then dozens of ordinary evenings, drawings on the floor, talks after school, his door opening for something besides an emergency. The woman hears her own voice at the exam, steady, no gaps, the material covered twice. Passed the exam, a different job, better pay, a different conversation with HR. The man can already see the door opening, his mother standing there. Not once, every 4 years, whenever he wants. Then the plans grow on their own, the language he never got to, the body he could get back in one winter, the books he bought and never opened, the project he's been sketching for years, everything he'd put off by telling himself, when I have time. The arithmetic is simple. 8 hours a night is almost 3,000 hours a year. Over 10 years, that adds up to more than 3 full years of extra time. 3 years nobody else will have. And so far, they've missed just 1 night's sleep. The math was right. They were counting the wrong thing. 8 hours weren't added to the day. The day still has 24 hours. Something else got longer. Before, a person was awake 16 hours and then slept. Now he's awake 24, then 32, then 40, and he assumes it can go on like that. He didn't gain time. He just stayed awake longer. And the longer he stays awake, the worse he becomes at everything he planned to do with that time. Attention, memory, steadiness of hand, steadiness of voice. The hours are still there. Every night he's less able to use them. The easiest way to see what sleep does is to watch what breaks without it. During sleep, the brain restores its ability to hold attention. What you experienced and learned during the day continues to be processed and consolidated into memory. The body recovers from the strain it carried. Sleep also helps restore the restraint that keeps reactions in check. Without it, that restraint weakens, and something small gets a response it doesn't deserve. This isn't about the dark outside or lying still. Sleep is a separate state of the body. Rest, while awake, can't stand in for it. Attention is one of the first things to go, and it shows up most clearly on the road. By midnight on the second sleepless night, the man pulls out. 6 hours of road, an empty highway, his mother's house by morning. He's already been awake about 40 hours. He feels fine. That's the dangerous part. First, his attention narrows. He stops registering exits, signs, the car beside him. Then a gap opens between what his eye sees and what his hand does. Small, but there. Then, for a few seconds, his brain shuts off on its own, without asking, without warning. He wasn't planning to sleep, and he won't know that he did. He notices something else. The guardrail is closer than it was. He pulls back into the lane and stops at the next exit. His mother's house is 2 hours away. He isn't driving the rest of it. He had time for the trip. He just can't continue it in this condition. Around the same time, the woman is back at her textbook. Past 1, the house asleep, nobody interrupting. Exactly the condition she wanted. It should be simple from here. She reads a paragraph and goes back to the start, reads it again. She reads every word, but the meaning never comes together. In 2 hours, she covers less than she would in 40 minutes during the day. In the morning, she remembers the topic of the chapter, but not the reasoning. She had 2 hours to study. Most of what she read, she'll have to go through again. That same night, the father sits back down at his desk. Everything is as it was the first time. The quiet, one lamp over the desk, no messages, no follow-up questions. By 4 in the morning, the report is done, the one he meant to finish last week. He sends the file, closes the laptop, and is sure tonight belongs to his daughter again. The reply comes late that morning. 1 row of data was in the wrong column, and every calculation after it is based on the wrong number. Finding it and rebuilding the report takes most of the day. At 6 that evening, the laptop is still open. His daughter appears in the doorway with a drawing and asks if they're drawing today. He looks at the spreadsheet and asks her to wait a little longer. She leaves. The work he moved into the night came back in the morning and took the evening he'd promised. The worst part is that a mistake like that looks like an accident, a row out of place, a number missed. Nothing that would make anyone stop. Less than 2 days have passed, but none of them has abandoned the idea. Once, this decision was stretched over 11 days, and what happened was recorded day by day. December 1963, San Diego. Randy Gardner, a 17-year-old high school student, picks a science fair topic: how long a person can go without sleep. 2 classmates take shifts keeping him awake. A Navy doctor, John Ross, watches his health. William Dement, a Stanford sleep researcher, comes to observe. Gardner stays awake 11 days. 264 hours. The first neurological trouble shows up on day 2. His eyes struggle to focus. He can't identify an object in his hand by touch. Then his speech loses precision. A simple tongue twister is beyond him. His mood shifts sharply, and his short-term memory begins to fail. He sees things in the room that aren't there and becomes convinced a radio host is trying to make him look like a fool. But the body doesn't shut down all at once. On day 10, Dement takes Gardner to an arcade. They play pinball, and Gardner wins game after game. Some abilities still hold up while others clearly fail. The next day, he's asked to count down from 100 by sevens. 93, 86, 79, 72, 65. Then he stops. They ask him why. He says he forgot what he was doing. When it was over, Gardner walked out to the reporters looking fine. Then he slept nearly 15 hours. That was the part that made the papers. A boy stayed awake 11 days and walked away on his own 2 feet. Nobody suggests repeating it now. In 1997, Guinness stopped tracking records for prolonged wakefulness because encouraging such attempts was considered too dangerous. Gardner was one person, and 11 days is an extreme case. In ordinary life, sleep is rarely given up altogether. Usually it's just cut short, and that creates a similar trap. How a person feels stops matching how a person performs. When people are allowed less sleep for several nights in a row, they soon feel as if they're no longer getting worse. Tests of attention and reaction time say otherwise. The lapses keep piling up. Some people genuinely need less sleep. It has nothing to do with willpower. Rare variants in genes including DEC2 and ADRB1 have been linked to naturally short sleep. Even they sleep. Seeing the cost doesn't take 11 days. He does sit down with her at 8:30, later than he meant to. He's been awake more than 60 hours. The drawing on the floor, a glass of water beside it, his daughter getting out the pencils. She tells him about school. Someone brought a snail into class, and they put it in a jar on the windowsill. He hears the beginning, then catches himself staring at the drawing, the middle of the story gone. He asks her to start over. She does, calmly, as if that's how it's supposed to go. Half an hour later, she knocks over the glass and the water spreads across the drawing. He speaks louder than he meant to.
What happened?
She goes quiet.
Look at the drawing.
He hears his own voice as if it belonged to someone else, and knows spilled water didn't deserve that tone. He'll remember the evening, the snail in the jar, the drawing on the floor, the water on the paper, the way his daughter suddenly stopped talking. But he won't remember what happened to the snail or where they eventually took it. Somewhere in the story, he lost the thread again. He got the evening, he just wasn't fully there for it. The bed is still made. Outside, the sky is starting to lighten. 8 hours of sleep don't take the day away from you. They preserve the attention you need to reach the end of the drive, the memory that holds on to what you've read, the precision to catch a wrong number before the file goes out, and the steady voice when water spills across a child's drawing. Those 8 hours can feel like time erased from your life. Everything else rests on them.